We continue our reading of Lest We Forget, a daily devotional by author George R. Knight. Today's reading, September 4. Doing Theology Appeals to Ellen White's Authority, Part 1. The grass withereth, and the flower thereof falleth away, but the word of the Lord endureth forever. 1 Peter 1, 24 and 25. The General Conference leadership had failed in attempting to resolve the theological issues facing the Church through the use of human authority, but they felt that a testimony from Ellen White on the disputed points would be even better. After all, were not her writings from God? Butler was particularly excited about the possibilities inherent in that type of decision. Between June 1886 and October 1888, he wrote a series of letters that indicate an increasing degree of pressure as he sought to force Ellen White to provide the authoritative interpretation he needed to settle the Galatians issue. Had he been more successful, he could have written a book entitled How to Push a Prophet. Employing good psychology, he began in a mild manner to elicit a response from her. On June 20, 1886, he wrote to her complaining of Jones and Wagner's teachings about the law in Galatians being the moral law, a point, he emphasized, that was out of harmony with traditional Adventist teaching. Butler then slid into his appeal by gently nudging her toward the proper answer. I heard it intimated years ago that you had light concerning the added law, to the effect that it related to the remedial system rather than the moral system. I think this question ought in some way to be set at rest. It would be a most bitter pill to many of our leading brethren to be compelled to see the idea taught generally that the law which was added was the moral law itself. On August 23, the General Conference president came a little more out in the open on the topic, after noting that the subject was creating controversy. He became quite specific about the situation in the 1850s when the Adventist leadership had adopted the ceremonial law interpretation. He suggested that he might write a tract on the topic, and finally he hinted that he knew very little of her opinion, thereby providing Mrs. White with an opportunity to rubber stamp the true view that he had just finished outlining to her. Now, here was a problem for Butler. Just how do you force, maneuver, convince, or urge a prophet to do something? Good question. We will see a bit more of the answer tomorrow. Meanwhile, we need to begin to think deeply about the relation of the modern prophet, the gift of prophecy, to the Bible. This concludes our reading today of Lest We Forget.